A very good day to all and salam sejahtera. Thank you all for tuning in. My name is Paul Gabriel and today's discussion is on GE15, the last lap of the battle for Putrajaya. Now, after 2 years of anxiety, unease and instability, we have reached a crescendo. The moment of truth is beckoning. The cause of our beloved nation will be known after the ballots are counted on the historic election night of November 19th. GE15 is touted to be a neck-and-neck race between the three main coalitions of Barisan Nasional, Pakatan, Harapan, and Perikatan Nasional. Who will get the bulk of the votes? Who will be the kingmakers? And who will hold the reins of power? There have been a lot of opinion polls and surveys conducted, but all this will not make a difference come election day. Here to give us a sense of what's going on is Datuk Seri Wong Chun, editorial advisor of The Star, and our colleague and roving editor Philip Golingai, who has just returned from his home state of Sabah, where he has done some excellent reporting. Welcome aboard, colleagues. It is nice to catch up with an out-of-newsroom discussion. Chun, is the present situation among voters still very fluid? Is it still subject to change, you reckon?
Okay, I just came, I spent 3 days in Tambun. And before our recording today, I had lunch with Anwar Ibrahim. I spoke to him about the many projections and surveys that's flying around the country. Especially, many of us have been receiving a lot of these surveys forwarded by our friends. And he is actually a bit grounded and realistic, and that he doesn't want to be drawn into these predictions about how many seats the PH would be getting. And I think that's a wise move. Because that I still think that the race is going to be tight. If there are still 3 days more to go, it's going to be very tight, and we really do not know how people would actually vote. I still think that there's still a large number of undecided voters. I mean, those of us who are in the Klang Valley, the Bangsa bubble, as Philip would say, we're the ones who are talking to each other. Of course, our friends will be those who probably be supporters of a PH as proven in G14. But we really do not know what's really the ground feeling on the East Coast, and to some extent even in Sabah and Sarawak. We are merely talking to ourselves. I think for PH, particularly PKR, I'm sure it will do well on the West Coast and the urban areas, especially in the Klang Valley now. But I think that it will need to do some persuasion to the Malay voters that as to whether the Malays the Malay heartland would really want to vote for PH, because most of the concerns of these undecided voters will be that if I vote for PH, would I as a Malay be marginalized because Anwar Ibrahim would embrace a lot of this multiculturalism, and to some extent, all this demonizing of Anwar Ibrahim has worked to some extent, because if you're living in the East Coast, you're living in a very Malay, predominantly Muslim Malay area, you will not be sure as to how PH relates to liberalism and so forth. So multiculturalism is something that's not something perhaps that they're not comfortable. Rightly or wrongly, these are the issues that PH will be facing. But over the next 3 days, I think that Anwar will go out to persuade and explain to the Malay voters that look, this is something that you don't have to worry. On the other hand, I think that BN and PN will also be going out to cast doubts about PH. And then look, this PH is not something that you will want to experiment with, and it's better that you stay with BN or with PN. As part of the Malay and Bumiputra agenda. If you look at the PN, especially in their manifesto, it states very clearly unapologetically Bumiputra agenda, Malay agenda, and Islam. So because it's pairing with the past, Barisan Nasional plays a more moderate and more open kind of manifesto, focusing on stability. So if you ask me, well, I don't think I want to risk my reputation as to who is going to win. There are 3 more days to go, and as they said, Paul, Philip, what do we know? We are just reporters. We're not posters.
Yeah, okay. Phil, has the gap, you think, between the Barisan Nasional, Pakatan, and Perikatan Nasional, do you think it has narrowed in the final stretch? People are saying it's too close to call, as Chun just told us how close it is going to be.
Okay, Paul, I'll quote you actually in answering your question. My answer is it's neck to neck as you said it. Okay, but just want to talk about the numbers. I wrote an article for the Midway because we're Midway on Monday, so I did an article. So my article says this: Pakatan Harapan claim they have 112 and more seats. BN also 112, and then Azmin Ali said 112, and we can get to 2/3. And then if you do the maths, 112 plus 112 is 300 seats. Everybody is going to get out of 222. So for me is that is just war. They want to show that they are leading. And what I'm told is voters love to be with winners. So they need to project the winner thing. That's why today, actually, I received a flurry of WhatsApp messages that quotes Oxford Analytica, Bukit Aman, Indonesia Embassy, USA Embassy, Ilham, etc., etc., etc. They didn't quote me lah, so I was a bit disappointed. But it shows that it was PH which was leading. But it's very simple actually. When you look at it, I know it's fake, but people believe it. Why I know it's fake? I just had on Sunday I met Ilham team, the big team. They were in Kota Kinabalu. So I asked them, I said, hey, what's the number? I said, give me the number. I need to do a story. Then they told me simple. They have not crunched the number. It's because they are getting reports. Pahang, something is happening in Pahang, police, so they need to crunch. So readers, our viewers, do not believe in those Oxford Analytica. And then they even have ASEAN. But it's very consistent. PH is leading, BN is losing. But it's very obvious it's psych war. So for me, it's very simple actually. It is a hung parliament. Nobody will get 112. It's very unlikely. I'll put my neck into that lah. Unless I hope I don't get hung by this by saying it will be a hung parliament. Thanks.
Okay, Philip, since you have gone into it, okay, you stepped into it, okay, I'll just follow up with what you have said. I agree with you. We should just be very cautious. Viewers should be very cautious and take it with not just a pinch of salt, many doses of salt as to these predictions that's going around. But I do agree with Philip that I think that the three coalitions, okay, we're talking about Barisan Nasional, Perikatan Nasional, and Pakatan Harapan, I think that all three would find it very difficult to win this general election without having to partner with some partners, some parties. They have to have a partner. And if they're on their own, I really doubt that any of them on their own would get 112. That's a simple majority. So I think it's going to be a long night on Saturday night, because compared to GE15, where it was basically almost a two coalition fight, but this time with three big coalitions, so many independents and so many parties, I think the polling and the calculating will take a long time. But the bottom line is that I think that a post-coalition would need to be formed for a government to be set up. So that's the furthest I would go. Philip?
Okay. Chunwai, did in your view, did anyone have a clear advantage in the way they campaigned in terms of the enthusiasm they created? We see that this time there was no appeal by the opposition for TV time. All had their events streamed live on social media, and they seem to have a big impact in the way they campaigned. What's your view on the campaigning?
This time is almost very much a social media war. Okay, I mean that. If people says that there are not many people attending ceramah, that's simply because the weather, when it's raining, and that people are very, very careful about crowd. You don't want to get COVID infected. So a lot of people are like me. I'm actually watching the ceramahs on the social media. Seri goes live, Anwar Ibrahim goes live. I'm watching comfortably from my room or from wherever I am, and then that I do a lot of nationwide talk shows, and I find that suddenly I find that these talk shows are filled with a lot of advertisements from these politicians. I'm not getting any money, okay? YouTube and Facebook is making a lot of money from these ads, but my YouTube show have been hijacked by these politicians, okay? they are placing ads in shows which they think will attract the people who follow politics. So I'm sure, like in our case, you see ads coming in at some point or another, but that's happening. So I see a lot of Instagram sponsored ads from politicians. So this time, I think that social media plays a really big role, and of course, they know that they need to reach these young voters, which until now, we do not see any data as to how they would vote. Nobody knows how they're going to vote. And there are something like 4 million undecided voters, which the competitors would have 3 days to convince them. The undecided voters will include people from Sungai Buloh. And we know that Sungai Buloh has always been a PKR stronghold. But this time, because of the entrance of the popular and charismatic KJ, Kari Jamaluddin, so you see large number of probably PH supporter which has suddenly found themselves in an unusual predicament. Should they vote for Kyrie, which they know is competent, or they should stick to their loyalty for PH? So you have many undecided voters. I happen to stay in Sungai Buloh. So I'm talking to my neighbors and they are telling me their predicament. And these have always been the PH supporters. So that's one area to watch.
Okay. A Merdeka Center says the highest group of undecided voters are in the 31 to 40 age group at 34%. And you just said that Ilham Center has said there are 4.5 million undecided voters still at this stage. What do you guys think this huge and decisive chunk of voters will be looking for as we approach the finish line? What are they looking for?
Okay, for me, is many people do not know actually, because they don't have they can't check their their voting trend previously because they never actually went out to vote. So it's a bit difficult to look at their where they're going. So, but this is the thing. Why this election is very unpredictable is because we do not know the voter turnout. If the undecided goes quite high, then most probably the result will turn decide. So it's all about voter turnout. Because if certain coalition, they already have their vote bank. That vote bank will definitely go out to vote because the party machinery will bring them out. So the undecided will decide most probably this election. It will be that margin.
According to the survey by Merdeka Center, it says that those aged 50 and above would have an idea of which party to vote. But those in the lower ages, especially the younger ages, in the middle ages, many of them are pretty unsure of where it would go. As you rightly said, Paul, that the undecided voters, those who are less than 50, are the big chunk of them. And again, we do not know how many of them would actually turn out to vote. And for the young voters, despite the hype, a lot of talk about, look, the young voters could be anti-establishment and they might vote for PH. We really do not know. Again, if you look at Malacca and Johor, many of them did not come out to vote. So this time, again, there are no data, there are no book to refer to. We have to see what's the turnout that will decide the outcome of GE15.
Okay. Just want to add, in terms of personal experience, in my family, I have young voters actually. They're like maybe 19, 20, 21, and 22. None of them are going out to vote. And then I really want them to vote, so I'm going to encourage them to vote. So I've promised them certain things to go out to vote because I really want them to go out to vote. Actually, they're not interested. Actually, I mean, for them, what is politics actually?
Mm-hmm.
I notice it's the urban crowd actually.
So there's a separate.
Sorry, Paul. Sorry for the interruption. I just want to follow up with what Philip said. I think Philip, you were with me when we were discussing this with Johari Ghani, the Barisan Nasional candidate for Titi Wangsa, in which he says that from his experience talking to many young voters, those only 18, he found that a lot of these voters had no idea as to how the election works. They had no idea what's a member of parliament, and they were basically indifferent. I get this feedback quite a lot as well from other candidates, irrespective of what party they belongs to. And I think that we may have jumped into only 18 much faster than we ought to. perhaps that in the coming years after GE15, perhaps the education ministry would need to have as part of the school curriculum to explain what's the general election, how does parliament works, what's Dewan Rakyat, and what's Dewan Negara. So I think that by the time we have GE16, then at least we have a group of people who have been prepared for how voting should be done. Sorry, Paul.
That's a good suggestion. Now the big question. Is there an apparent shift in Malay support from Barisan to Pakatan? According to one study, up to November 8th, Barisan appeared to be losing some Malay support, but the velocity of the decline has been arrested. Can we have your views on this topic?
I don't think if BN is losing Malay votes, it's not going towards PH actually. It's going towards PN. PN is quite strong in this. They have, like, for example, in terms of the young, they have TikToks. They've done TikToks. They paid influencer to do TikToks from them. And yeah, they've been working harder actually for Perikatan Nasional. And I don't think PH will, based on the Johor and Melaka results, I don't think PH will get the Malay votes.
What's your take?
Yeah,
I take a slightly different view. We look at GE14. If you look at the voting pattern, the racial voting pattern, almost 95% in GE14 Chinese, 95% almost voted for PH, and then Indians around 85%. In that election, about 30 to 35% of Malays voted for PH, and that was enough for the collapse of the Barisan Nasional government after 60 years in power. Now, this time, G15 will be slightly different because there are three coalitions. So the Malay votes are split, as Philip says, that they have a choice of Perikatan Nasional. Now, assuming that we look at the West Coast, that there's a shift in Malay pattern, that many Malay households, they are quite exposed to PKR and DAP in the West Coast, especially in the Klang Valley. Even if more Malays were to vote for PH, the number of votes on majority may increase for PH, but the seats may basically remain the same. So the majority would increase. Now, I still stick to the fact that we really do not know, okay, how this Perikatan Nasional, how would they fare in the East Coast? I think that it's safe to say that they will have locked in the votes on past, because the past votes have always been very solid, okay? So again, I would not want to predict too strongly as to how it will go. We are in a situation where there are so many variables, so many unknown factors, and so many untested factors.
Okay. Pakatan Harapan is said to have the largest share of safe seats, but observers say it still faces an uphill battle to expand due to the lack of traction among Malay voters. Lack of traction meaning they are a bit sluggish in attracting the Malay vote at this stage. Chun, you think there's any basis to these claims?
Perhaps not so much in the urban areas of the West Coast, especially in Klang Valley. Perhaps in the areas which are of mixed constituencies, or what you call it in Johor, perhaps on Pahang. And the most common asked question to Anwar Ibrahim, he was on his campus round talking to young voters, and that in one particular gathering of students, they asked him one question. If PH would come to power, would we as Malays and Bumiputera, would we lose our rights? Would we be marginalized? So that question keep on coming up, and so that means there's a reservation among Malay voters as to whether they will really want to put their vote into for PH. That's something that's always been difficult for Anwar Ibrahim and PH, this particular issue.
Okay. Now we onto the enigma that is Perikatan. We spoke about them earlier, but social media chatter and surveys still indicate that preference of Malay voters, as you said, Philip, just now, that preference of Malay voters for Perikatan is increasing to the point some say it could eclipse UMNO. The other feeling is that at best, Perikatan will only be a big spoiler. Philip, how do you see this?
Yeah, the interesting thing is for UMNO, they started last week a bit slow. That's what the pollster were telling me. They started slow, so I think they need to do a bit of a rethink, and then this week they will be much more aggressive. They will counter whatever Perikatan Nasional says. But last week was we give it to Perikatan Nasional. They're quite strong in social media and then on the ground campaign. I think the thing with UMNO is because of the selection of candidate, they need to settle that. But once they settle the selection of candidate, they are moving to a it's actually gearing. We call it, maybe they go into third gear, fourth gear, and then they'll be moving. So this week, this next few days is very crucial.
Philip, you know, I know that the poster wall is not a clear indicator. Do you feel that this time the Barisan Nasional may not have so much funds as compared to previous elections? I noticed there are more PH and PN posters and flags than the Barisan Nasional in the poster wall. Second thing is that you mentioned that the BN will get itself into action with 3 more days to go. Given the fact that it started off in a very disjointed manner, because that there were no unity, especially those who have been dropped, there'll be for sure there'll be elements of sabotaging, and actually some of the BN campaigners from UMNO has been sacked from police. Do you think that there would be an effect on the performance of UMNO in this election?
Okay, to answer your question, we take Melaka. When I was covering Melaka election, based on the poster, Perikatan Nasional won it. It was really interesting, actually. You will see the light blue, light blue, light blue. Melaka is very small, actually. In one day, I went to technically almost all the seats, actually. We went there, and then in each along that way, it is all the light blue of Perikatan Nasional. Based on poster, sudah menang. But then when you look at the result, BN got 2/3. So for me, yes, poster is actually great. It gives you an indication, actually, who's strong, who's not strong, but they don't vote. And then, Chinwai, in terms of your BN have to do a rethink. They will push. They know that they were a bit behind in this one. They will push.
Okay, let's talk about the possible election outcomes. Scenario 1, uncharted waters with a totally new coalition government with no single coalition dominant. Scenario 2, Anwar Ibrahim leads a PH attempts to form coalition with other parties in Sabah, possibly GPS, to form simple majority government. And scenario 3, Perikatan's Malay onslaught falters and Malay voters go back to BN, which teams up with GPS and PAS to form simple majority government. Chunwai, any of these scenarios strike you in particular?
You're not going to trap me with that question.
Nice try. It's a trap.
It's a trap. Okay, GE14, I got it completely wrong. And I think that the opposition, in that case, the new government of GE14 also got it wrong. I mean, that in the GE14, I said that, well, Barisan will get 126. I got it completely wrong, okay? So this time I'm really super careful as to how it will turn out. But whether it's Barisan Nasional, whether it's PN, whether it's PH, I think that no one will be able to form a government without GPS, without Sabah and Sarawak, particularly Sarawak. For PH, I think the difficulty would be to do a deal with GPS, because over the last 2 days or so, the Premier of Sarawak has been very aggressive. He has stepped up his campaign against PKR and DAP. And I think that Anwar Ibrahim would know, for him, the deal has been made difficult because of certain personalities in the DAP, which has made it difficult for GPS. GPS, I think, has not forgiven some of the things that have been said about GPS, and until now, they're still very sore about that. And if GPS were to finally do any deal with PH, assuming that PH wins a certain number, then that they may insist that, look, you may have to drop certain personalities from your cabinet, or GPS may say that, look, I don't want to be part of any coalition which you are heading, but as a support to a stable government, we may support the government, but not part of your coalition. So I think that it won't be that easy. But I think that it'll be easier for BN and PN and GPS to form a coalition. I think it's much more easier. So that's my take at this point. I would not commit myself to any winning coalition. So Philip, I pass the buck to you.
Okay, I will commit, but I'll answer the PH situation. The interesting thing about PH is there are 57 seats in Sabah and Sarawak. So just say we give them 4 seats in Sarawak, 4 seats in Sabah. Just say make it 7 lah, so that easier for me to count. They will only win 7 seats out of 57. So 50 will go towards this BN, PN kind of coalition. So first of all, their result in Sabah and Sarawak will be quite bad. Okay, that's number one. Number two,
we are referring to who they?
Sorry, they as PH. PH will only get maybe, I'm giving them the best, 4 in Sarawak, 4 in Sabah. They will only get 8. 8 minus 57, okay lah, they only get 49 will go towards the other side. Okay, that's number one. And number two, when I speak, I was on call actually. I was talking to a few of my GPS leaders. Theirs is very simple. Anything but DAP. They're very clear about that. It's because it's what the former finance minister, when he was finance minister, Lim Guan Eng, he said Sarawak GPS government will bring the state it'll become bankrupt. They're still sore about it. Plus, they are also sore about other reasons. So it's very difficult to imagine GPS supporting PH, especially because of DAP. Okay, I'll stick my neck. I think most probably the next government will be the same government that we have, which is the Ismail Sabri Muhyiddin government, which is BN, PN, GPS, and the smaller little parties plus independent. The addition will be Warisan. Warisan will be part of this government. Most likely, that is the government, and my logic is it will be very difficult for PH to find friends. But then again, on that night, we never know. There will be offer here and there, and then we'll see who goes for that offer.
So Philip, so you know that the reservations about the accuracy of the surveys that have been done, giving PH 90 seats, 100 seats, you know. So the reservations here, the holes would be that these calculations did not factor in the possible losses of seats of PH seats, especially DAP in Sarawak. Are you familiar with Sabah and Sarawak? What are the seats which PH may lose in Sarawak or Sabah, for example? Can you tell us?
Okay, one seat will be Tenem. I think even DAP, when we had a talk with Anthony Locke, he has named what do you call it? Tenem. Tenem they will lose. Tenem actually might make history. Tenem, most likely, the candidate will be Cap Gajah. Independent might win Tenem. Okay, Tenem they might lose, and then up there, and then 1, 2, and then Putatan they might lose. They might lose Putatan in Sabah, and then the other seat is Ranau. They won Ranau, but it looks like Bersatu is quite strong. So out of their, I forgot how many, 5 or 6 that they used to win in Sabah, they will lose around 3 or 4. And then in Sarawak, the Cebu fight is very strong actually. And then the Cebu fight is DAP won it outright, but then it's actually opposition versus opposition. It is Wong Sumko of what is his party? PSB, Parti Sarawak Bersatu versus what? So it's what I'm told is neck to neck. So they have a chance of losing that. And then in Stampin also, Chong Jen Ren, he's facing SUPP. There is the GPS kind of wave in Sarawak. So most likely they might even lose that seat. And then Puncak Borneo, it used to be with PKR, but then now the candidate is with GPS, but he might not be popular, but he might win that seat. And then you have the Ali Biju seat. Ali Biju used to win Seratok, and then he's now a PN candidate. So he's a very popular guy. So these are the seats that in Sabah and Sarawak that PH are likely to lose.
And then,
Okay.
of course, Jonathan Bing Kwei is possibly going to win the seat for PBS from UPCO, right?
From the incumbent is from UPCO.
What's the name of the seat again?
Tuaran.
Tuaran
Okay.
is contesting in Tuaran.
Yeah.
Chun Wai, many say that you met Anwar just today over lunch, and he would have spoken to you. And many say that getting to be the Prime Minister is like a destination for Anwar. He wants to reach that point, and no matter what, he wants to get to that final point. He has declared in the past that he has had the job in the bag based on pledges of support. But do you think that the only route for Anwar to become Prime Minister is for him to prove it in the polls and to lead his coalition to an electoral victory like Mahathir did in 2018? Is GE15 going to be his best chance?
Yeah, I think that you're right in saying that the only way to prove that you have the numbers would be to go to the polls. And not that numbers will be the number of seats that PH can win. He's already over 70 plus, and that this is probably his last and best chance ever to win and become Prime Minister. And assuming that G15 does not happen for him, then we can conclude that this will be his last. This is the closest that and the biggest fight by him to try to be Prime Minister. But this time, as I said that in my conversation with him, which was attended by other by ambassadors from other countries who were there, he was very guarded, very reserved, and very careful in his. He didn't want to be drawn into anything about prediction, and he says that look, there are still 3 more days to go, and he was really very guarded.
Okay.
Okay, but in order for Anwar to become PM, he has to win Tambun first, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Can he win Tambun?
I was in Tambun for 3 nights. Okay, I think that the tide would be in his favor. I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the other hot seats to discuss, Sungai Buloh. I think you've been to Sungai Buloh. You said Kuala Selangor. You've been to Kuala Selangor, Gombak. I don't know whether you went to Gombak. Tambun, you went to Tambun, Chunwai. It is said that Tengku Zafrul, Menteri Besar Amiruddin, and Anwar hold the distinct edge in the seats they are contesting. As for KJ, you spoke about KJ just now. Do you think it's too huge a majority for him to overturn? Will he be the fall guy these elections? KJ.
I think in all these 3 areas, okay, Kuala Selangor, Sungai Buloh, and one more is Gombak, right? Now, I think I'm more familiar with Sungai Buloh and Kuala Selangor. I think this is a case where the strong PH supporters are torn between this new competent calon and their love for their PH. Because Kuala Selangor previously was won by PAS and then he jumped to Amanah. And now that he's seeking his another try, he had announced his retirement, Dr. Zulkifli, and now he's making a comeback. So I think that he has done what he can for Kuala Selangor. I don't think he has much to offer anymore. So I think that Tunku Zafar would probably have a better chance there. And in the case of Sungai Buloh, this one will be much more difficult because, as you said, the last time the majority was very high. Siva Rasa did very well. And over the next 3 days, KJ has gained a lot of popularity over there. But I'm told Anwar Ibrahim will be going down to Sungai Buloh to give the final push to ensure that he can lock in the PH votes for the contender. And we know that Anwar Ibrahim is a superb orator. He can sell, I think he can sell anything. He can sell a fridge in
Alaska.
In Alaska, yeah, okay. So he's a very persuasive speaker. So KJ will have to make sure that after Anwar has finished his ceramah, he has got to come back and try to make sure that he neutralizes what Anwar has done. So the next 3 days, 3 nights will be absolutely crucial. None of the candidates will be sleeping.
Paul, can I answer the Sungai Buloh question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sungai Buloh for me is, I think KJ has a chance of winning, and my prediction is just based on one viral video. The video is this you all are laughing at it. This video is this auntie who's Chinese, and then she was like holding very tightly, and then I think it's 1 or 2 seconds longer than it should be, and then it looks like a bit of harassment going on, and then you should see all that auntie. The aunties were all excited. The thing about KJ is he has sex appeal. So this is one factor that might, even what I'm told is the Chinese will vote for him, the Indians will vote for him, the Malay will vote for him because of this sex appeal, and people see him as the progressive face of UMNO, and he is also seen as the future Prime Minister of Malaysia. I mean, in the distant future. So just based on that viral video, I might be very wrong, but it looks like KJ can win.
So he has an X factor.
The sex factor.
Chun Wai, I want to ask you that in Malaysia we have seen how often that there are no permanent enemies, no permanent friends. We have seen how, but Dr. Mahathir is convinced that Zahid Hamidi and Anwar are talking, even as they campaign against each other. Chun Wai, will we see friends being ditched, enemies coming together in just a matter of days?
Not in a matter of days, but after GE15, after the final votes have been calculated and counted, and if we all predict there'll be no real winners, then they will do deals. Actually, whether you're in UMNO or whether you're in the DAP or irrespective of any parties, I think that the politicians have been quite open, at least privately, and in some cases they have gone on record to say that they're prepared to work with anyone. DAP has said that they're prepared to work with UMNO to form the next government if the deal is correct and the red lines are not crossed. A red line meaning that certain figures who are charged for corruption, they says that, well, we're not going to allow that to cross the line as part of the deal. And I think PKR or PH, Anwar Ibrahim, in his quest to be finally as Prime Minister, I don't think he's going to let these small distractions affect his vision. I think deals will be made because they really have to make a deal, or else we will not have a government in days, in weeks, and months. And that should not happen because we really need to form a government. So everybody will be forced to come to the table, and everybody will look at each other. What are you offering? What am I getting? So forget about all these principles, all these ideologies, all this untuk kepentingan rakyat, agama, dan negara. It will be, what do I get doing a deal with you? Would I get this position? Would I get to be the ambassador? Would I get to be a special envoy? And I really, really hope for Malaysians and for Malaysia's sake that let this result be a convincing and conclusive one, because or else we are back to square one and we're going to have a bloated government. And if we have a bloated government with many, many ministers, deputy ministers, and ambassadors, then Malaysians are to be blamed because we can't decide.
Okay, I think we've come to the last question. I still want you both to make a prediction, but I'll try to. I will try to be not so specific. But is there going to be a decisive result, or will there be a split government emerging? Do you see 2018 repeating? Chun Wai first.
I think that no coalition would have a convincing majority. And I think I've said this many times in different manner throughout the interview. That's my belief.
Philip?
Okay. Yeah, for me, 2018 won't happen because 2018 PH won outright. This time, nobody will get 112. I'll be very surprised even if a coalition get 90 plus.
All right.
It will be a hung parliament. It will be after the voters vote. It is already politics at its elite level. The elites will be negotiating.
Philip, we should be asking Paul also to give his prediction.
Yeah, Paul, come on.
Oh, okay. I thought here I was asking the questions, but yeah, I guess I'm with you with Chun Wai. I think there will be no outright winner. I think Philip, you two said that, so we are all three in unison together. So that's how we're going to end on the same footing. And with that, I want to thank both my guests, Datuk Seri Wong and Philip, for enlightening us on the complexities of GE15. We will see whose challenge will vaporize on election night and who is going to gloat. As for the rest of us, we will need to start thinking about life post-election, hopefully one that is free from political disruptions. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you.
Thank you.